The Rescuer by David Tennyson. When I'm present to you, to your story, to your trials and triumphs, I'm not with me, I'm with you. When we are navigating tear-fed seas of your traumatic tales, buffeting waves of emotion, I'm not at home, I'm out with you. When together we trek through recall and reason, only to find ourselves lost again, it's a dark march back to me. Many times now, I have strayed far from me, far from familiar, and I hitch-hiked through healing. I stumbled through dark heartlands looking for myself, attempting to untangle my story from yours, finding and binding the armour I gave away when your vulnerability took you too close to the edge of yourself. So please, pardon me. Forgive me when I pull back, fall down, collapse, go missing, and need help. For I am a recovering rescuer, and one who limps with aid after having hip touched by angel. I'm learning now how to move with strong boundaries and fierce refusals. I'm learning to walk without leaving myself behind. So I need to let you in on a few personal dynamics here. First of all, I am a burden bearer or an empath. I'm highly empathetic. Some of you may realize that, maybe by my poetry or you've met me, but I did a test a couple of years ago, a profiling test, which has been, was created, I think, at Stanford University, has been tested on thousands of people across the world and gives sort of medians and averages. And I'm kind of in the top 3 percentile. I think it was 2 actually, top 2 percentile of population with empathy this high. So that is a dynamic I have had to and am having to still manage, really, that I feel so much, that I tend to get lost in what's going on in other people's lives. Another thing about me that maybe will help frame this is that if you're familiar with the Enneagram, which is quite an old personality type profiling system, I'm a 9 on the Enneagram. And the 9 is the peacemaker, and the 9 tends to lose themselves in others' agenda. And this is one of the gifts of the 9, and this is how they are peacemakers, and they bring great peace. It's the gift of 9s to the world, is that they can create peace. And one of the ways they do that is by merging into other people's agendas and then bringing all those things together. So here I am, highly empathetic, a burden bearer, feeling a lot of things, picking up a lot of things. I'm now a merger of those things, and add to that, I'm also rate pretty high on the highly sensitive person test, HSP. And if you're familiar with this work, I've done quite a lot of teaching around it. I've interviewed experts on it because this has really affected me. A highly sensitive person is somebody whose nervous system is wired a certain way. It's 1 in 5, 20% of the population are highly sensitive persons. Your nervous system is set a particular way. You tend to, you're a deep thinker. You prefer deep and meaningful conversations over light and fluffy ones. You tend to get overwhelmed or underwhelmed easy. You're able to pick up on, emotions and empathetic resonance and things like that. You just kind of are able to put yourself in other people's shoes and situations very, very easily. You're also just sensitive to stimulation. And so body, soul, and spirit and personality, here I am, the perfect storm and the perfect candidate for somebody who's a codependent person who is a rescuer. And that is how I earned a living. That is how I framed my identity for many, many years. I did that by losing myself. Now, I want us to understand that losing yourself is very different to emptying yourself. There's this beautiful term that theologians use to describe the life of Jesus, and that is kenosis, self-emptying, kenosis. Now, self-emptying is very different to self-losing. Jesus never lost the essence of who he was, but he learned how to empty himself. Now, that's different to me and those who are codependents and those who are enmeshed and rescuers in the worst kind of way, in the destructive kind of way, is that we lose ourselves. And so I'm a prime candidate for doing this, and this is really how I lived for a long time. And I wrote this in September 2018 in reflection of how I had spent nearly, over a year trying to work through and get a grip on how I burnt out, how I fell apart, how I needed to recover from being a rescuer. And God took me on a deep journey over many months and put his finger particularly on my tendency to lose myself in rescuing others. And so this is why I use this language, because it's so true. If you're like me, you might tick all those boxes. You might be a 9 on the Enneagram, a burden bearer, highly sensitive. You may have come from a codependent background as a rescuer, because there's a lot of benefits from being like that, but it comes at too big a cost to yourself. And so that's why I use this language, like, when I'm present to you, I'm not with me. When we're navigating tear-fed seas of your traumatic tales, I'm not at home, I'm out with you. When we're trekking through recall and reason, it's a dark march back to myself. And so years I did in prayer ministry, and the years I spent thousands of hours with people, especially pastors and leaders, traveling across the globe, praying with them, ministering to them, and really being a hero to some. There are quite a number of people, pastors and leaders, who have said publicly, if it wasn't for David, I don't know if I'd be in ministry. I don't even know if I'd be alive. Now, let's be honest, that can feel pretty cool, but it comes at a great cost. Quite often, people that I helped over the years, I helped at a great expense to myself, instead of being able to lean in and guide towards and trust in God. And so I lost my story in theirs. I lost my identity in these giftings and these traits, and it came at a great expense. As I said, self-emptying and self-sacrifice are very different. And I'd sacrificed myself. I gave away my armour. I gave away things that were important for me to remain myself, and I gave them away to people as I helped them, as they got too close to the edge of themselves. Some were just in a real bad way, and this language came from a vision, an encounter I had while I was in this chair, in bed, laid up, not sure if I don't know what I was going to do. I was just really not in a good way. Burnout took me out and hit me so hard. And God showed me in this vision that I had come to him. He was sitting on this chair, a throne, I guess, and I approached him, and looking at myself in the third person in this vision, I noticed I was like this soldier who had all this armor missing, and I was beat up. I was so beat up and battle weary. I was missing thigh plates on my armor. I was missing arm plates and things. It was like my armor suit had entire major pieces missing. If you think about Iron Man, it's like major parts of his suit was gone. And I remember in this vision just losing myself and crying in the chest and the arms of God. And I just stayed there for months, really. Some dear friends reached out to me and ministered to me. And during this prayer ministry time, I really noticed that I had given away all these pieces of armor. It was me. I had done that. And my prayer became from that moment on, God, I want my armor back. I want what is mine back. I'm sorry for not trusting you. I want back what is mine. I want my essence back. I want my strength back. I want my armor back. And I realized in my codependency, in my desire to help, yes, in my love for others, but in this unwise, dysfunctional way, I had given away more than I should have, and it came at my expense. And that can be tough. Sometimes you help others and you see them thrive, and then you hit the wall. And that can be tough. So as that came back, and as my strength returned, and as courage came to me, and as I embraced my weakness, I began to learn the absolute essential. I'm 40 at this stage, just the absolute importance of good boundaries, of fierce refusals, of saying no, to close my book, so I said no to so many people. And that's why in part of this poem, I apologize. It's sorry, but not sorry, where I say, please pardon me, forgive me when I pull back, fall down, collapse, go missing, and need help. And those who are strong, those who are often rescuers, it's the hardest thing for us to say, I actually need help now. It was even hard for me to realize how bad things had got. And as I moved towards recovery and re-strengthening and walking in a new way, I realized that I was never going to be the same again, and that I'm going to have to manage who I am and how God's built me for a long time. I really think the enemy will always try and twist and pervert the way that we are built and gifted and the gift that we are to the world by either stopping us altogether or pushing us way beyond what we actually need to. And so that's why I talk about me becoming a recovering rescuer and one who limps with aid after having hip touched by angel. That's a reference to Jacob at Jabbok. And I realize the way that I move now, the way that I walk now, the way of my being today is drastically different to a couple years ago. I'm walking with a limp now, just as anybody does after they've been through trials and troubles. And the limp looks different for all of us. Bankruptcy, divorce, death, grief, inward sin, outward sin. There's just life can cause us to walk differently. But I think if I can encourage anyone listening, don't give up your wrestle with God. There are deep lessons to learn and things that are essential for our maturity and for our growth. So with that, I want to read this for you again, hoping that it's an encouragement to many of you who may be like me, burden bearers, empaths, highly sensitive people, or even 9 on the Enneagram, those who work in therapy, pastoral care, helping people. Now I pray that this is an encouragement to you and gives you strength and hope. When I'm present to you, to your story, to your trials and triumphs, I'm not with me, I'm with you. When we are navigating tear-fed seas of your traumatic tales, buffeting waves of emotion, I'm not at home, I'm out with you. When together we trek through recall and reason, only to find ourselves lost again, it's a dark march back to me. Many times now, I have strayed far from me, far from familiar, and I hitchhiked through healing. I stumbled through dark heartlands looking for myself, attempting to untangle my story from yours, finding and binding the armour I gave away when your vulnerability took you too close to the edge of yourself. So please, pardon me. Forgive me when I pull back, fall down, collapse, go missing, and need help. For I am a recovering rescuer, and one who limps with aid after having hip touched by angel. I'm learning now how to move with strong boundaries and fierce refusals. I'm learning to walk without leaving myself behind. Thanks for listening to this podcast. It's available on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, davidtenson.com, and also on our Patreon page, patreon.com/leaderheart, where you can find more stuff and support us through a monthly donation. If you are listening to this on iTunes, I would really appreciate a rating and a review. It would really help get the word out there. Till next time, shalom.